Okay, good evening. Welcome to the December 10th meeting of the Transportation Subcommittee. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Counsel Dakota.
Here.
Counsel Janess.
Here.
Counsel Noon.
Here.
3 present.
Let the record show that Councilor Mercier is also in attendance as well. Ms. Holtman and Mr. Ryan as well from the parking. So our agenda here tonight, the order of business is, first one is this traffic calming with a number of streets, so I'll leave the floor to Ms. Altman at this point.
So I believe that these were all referred to you. I've had a number of responses, a couple of council meetings ago, and so really, the first one was about some specific locations in Centerville, which will be addressed as the sewer separation project is going through. We're going to leave the streets with as many traffic. We're going to put in speed humps in a lot of locations. We're going to put bump outs on West 6, which we can't put a speed hump on because of the fire. We're going to put additional crossings on Hildreth, which people have asked for to get to the park. So as that moves through, we're going to leave it nice and we're going to leave it calm. So the Councilor Belanger had asked about a couple of streets in Belvedere, Wentworth, and Fairmount. Both are fairly long and straight, wide. Some of them, the streets are right on the verge of having road safety ratings that need repaving. So I'm not going to be able to do anything immediately. I might be able to do some trials over the summer. So we'll do some things, we'll try and do some things there, but it won't be permanent until we get to such a time that we can either repave or, yeah. It'll probably be.
Are we looking at summer type of thing?
Probably summer to do some trials out there. We had done a little mini bump out that people kind of liked, but we would be able to do maybe some more along there. We did it on Fairmount couple of years ago. And then I think the last one was on Lewis Street by Holy Trinity.
Yes.
And I think that's a great location for raised crosswalks. There's no way to get from the 2 churches on either side to the Ecumenical Plaza. That one, we just have to look into a design a little bit more because it does require addressing drainage because they go all the way to curb as opposed to speed humps which stop and allow drainage.
So your suggestion would be to install
Yes, I
permanently?
think it's a good location to do something permanently.
Okay.
So we'll move in that direction on those
Very good.
roads. It's both sides of Ecumenical Plaza, which is Suffolk and I just lost it. Lewis.
Lewis, yep.
And so that was
I had Westford Street sidewalk on mine as well. Did you?
Westford Street sidewalk. So there is a sidewalk on one side of Westford Street. It's not 100% ADA compliant. So when we get to repaving that road in a couple of years, that we would want to replace that sidewalk. On the other side of the street, we've got some wetlands, but that we would have to deal with to decide if we need a sidewalk on both sides. So I think that there is a desire path, that's worn into the grass on the opposite side where the sidewalk is now. So I think it is a good suggestion as we move forward with a repaving project in here. That's the best contract to do something like that under. I don't have a separate sidewalk contract.
So where do we go from here on that?
It's something that I've recommended to engineering. I don't know where this section of Wood Street is on their paving plan. I don't think they've placed it yet.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that we know it's an issue and we'll have to address it when we get to that point.
Understood. All right, we're done with that portion. I'll leave it up to my colleagues if they have any questions. Councilor New.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, for list for the report. I know that some of the district councilor, they pick, say, Centerville, Belvedere's, and maybe the Lower Highland, on Lewis, on Fairmont, and elsewhere. I think one area, I think, is on the motions by Councilor Scott, Holder Street. I would suggest that going forward, looking at throughout the city and looking at traffic calming throughout the city rather than to having a district councilor and or large just put on this and that. And we need to really pay attention on the whole city, throughout the city in terms of traffic calming. Either you just mentioned mini bum or speed hum or something like that. I mean, it should have a policy to do that throughout the city of Lowell.
So we are right now in the process of assessing actually every street in the city. We are going to be rolling out a dashboard in January sometime, so a resident can go on their street, click on it, and see if it's eligible for speed humps. We are still in, so Boston now has a policy that they're putting speed humps everywhere, neighborhood by neighborhood. It's taken them about 10 years to get to that point. So this is our first year that we installed 6 speed humps. I've heard rave reviews. They're for the permanent humps. And so next year we're going to install more and hopefully have a separate speed hump contract for our targeted locations. And then we will be able to move into a neighborhood by neighborhood type implementation.
You mentioned that it took Boston 10 years. How long would you think it take the city of Lowell?
Hopefully not 10 years.
Thank you for that.
Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to echo Councilor Nguyen's thoughts here. I know there's many places in my district that we've talked about and many more that we haven't. And I try not to, be part of the deluge of streets that need attention because we know it is pretty widespread in the city. I am excited by the prospect of being able to roll these out, speed humps and other traffic calming measures in a wider way across the city. I think there's a lot of places that could use it, as we've talked about many times. So I look forward to seeing that come to fruition. I will say, with the areas that they go in, you hear but nothing but compliments from the neighbors and the residents. So I don't think there'll be a whole lot of friction in terms of getting this stuff in. It's just clearly a matter of funding and prioritization and manpower and everything else. But I would like to just make sure that we don't lose track of other things like stop signs and sidewalks and stuff like that as we're doing this. I know it all ties in together and it's all important to be addressed together. Building a cohesive transportation network for all road users is what we need to do here, not just throw a speed hump here because somebody asked for it.
Agreed.
So, but thank you for your work, and I look forward to seeing more of these be planted and grow in the spring. Thank you.
And if I may, residents can always, there's a traffic calming request form. I have my engineering analysis, which covers the whole city, but if people have specific concerns, they can always let me know through that form.
While we're here, there is one thing I wanted to ask, which is just last time we talked about this, there was a discussion of potentially obtaining more of the temporary quick install pieces to be able to do more test beds. Do we know, has there been any progress on that plan or thought?
I think what we would like to do is address the hot spots through a permanent speed hump implementation. And then the permanent speed humps are actually less expensive than the temporary ones with less city manpower involved.
Okay.
For the next year, we might target a location for the temporary ones that might come up between when I put out the contract and mobilization. But they are being stored, they are ready to go back out, so.
Okay, great. And I guess that was one other open question, was whether or not they were going to come up in a way that we could put them back down next year. So it sounds like yes.
They came up pretty well.
Okay, that's good to hear. All right.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Let the record show that Councilor Belanger and Councilor Yem have joined us. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo speed humps and say what a great idea, great invention. Everywhere I go, people want them, so they're in demand. And speaking about traffic calming requests, I have a verbal request. I'm not using a form, but I'm using it in the form of a verbal request. On December 5th, I was over at the senior center, and speaking of traffic calming, there is an island in front of the senior center that allows the seniors to cross safely, and it is kind of a traffic calming thing. That's what we had asked for some time ago. I got a lot of squawk about, no, we're not putting it there, and I said, yes, you are, and it's there. So be that as it may, it's there. And I thought that it should be there because the seniors go to the center and they cross the street and go to Market Basket. So who paid for that was not the city, it was Arthur Demoulas paid for that. And he had his men do the work some years ago. I don't think you were here then. But at that time, some years ago, there was a light run by the environment, like the solar light, that someone pressed and they could walk across, but I don't see it anymore, and that's what they talked about. And so I'm using this format to try to say, can we find out if we could have one there? They press a button and it allowed a blinking yellow light so that they could cross safely. It's all about safety and calming and traffic and stuff. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So if you can check into that for me, thank you.
Not to deviate from the agenda that we have before us, but I had actually, this past Saturday, visited Hollis Street for about a half an hour and spoke with some people concerning a different matter that's on the agenda tonight. I will say, in 20 minutes, I saw 100 cars, and no exaggeration, 100 cars going through back and forth on Hollis at excessive speed. So I will be putting a motion, if not through the maker, Councilor Scott, that we'd have permanent speed humps on Hollis Street, without a doubt. I'd never seen anything like it. If there's any street in this city that needs speed humps, that's the street.
It's one of those hotspot locations.
It is
that'll be
fantastic,
addressed.
fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next. I believe it's the parking.
If I could add, Mr.
Oh, sure,
Chairman.
Councilor, I apologize.
If I could add and echo what Councillor Mercier said about the island in front of the senior center, if I could make a form of request also to have proper lightings, because someone who may not be familiar with the road, they ran over that island, so as a result damaging their vehicle. So they reach out to me and ask if the city can put some sort of a lighter lights, so you can see better. Specifically right now, getting dark so quickly, it helps illuminate that island so no one drive over it without knowing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few quick questions. Mr. Chairman, through you to Liz Altman. Liz, what is the, for the temporary speed humps, what's the approximate cost on those again?
Those were about $6,000, $6,500 a piece.
Okay.
And
All right.
they're, they're not cheap.
No.
'Cause they're petroleum-based products.
Right.
So
And they're not-
actual speed humps that cost, with mobilization, about $5,000 a piece.
Yep. Well, I want you to know my constituents, now that we paved Draper Street, my constituents are extremely pleased with the permanent speed humps there. They're very happy with your work. But in closing, I would just say, please, if, with the temporary speed humps, I know Councilor Mercy applauded them as well, but I would inquire as to a bulk rate, if you will, on those things. They're in demand, and they're going to be, as we get into the winter and spring, and our constituents are going to be crying out loud for them. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next on our agenda is the parking master plan. Ms. Altman or Mr. Ryan, would you like to take a stab at it?
I'm not really sure what the question was on the parking master plan.
Whose motion was that, Mr. Geary? I remember it was the meeting that was very late, and I know that one of the councilors had asked that it to us, but we don't know what the parking master plan exactly.
Was there,
We kind of knew about the calming, but Terry, do you want to take a stab at it?
So, sure, I can talk that we did do a parking study back in 2021, and there were recommendations to that. From 2021, I can just go through a few things that we have done in the parking department that we were able to accomplish. We've installed the 143 new kiosks throughout the city. I actually have 5 more on order because I have 5 locations that I'd like to put them, and I think they would be helpful. And I expect those in Lowell in a couple of weeks. With the kiosks, we expanded the operation of the kiosks and the app, so now we program them for events. So every event in the city, I can program those kiosks to set the event rate and collect $20 on the street, and they can be paid at the app, using the app, or on the kiosk. That has been very successful. Just this past weekend, we made $57,000 in events between the Songus and the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. So that is helping. We are making additional revenue because of that equipment. We've done the rate adjustments back in April. People are now paying increased rates for the permits and the stickers and things like that, the signs, and so that is moving along well. We've installed new gate equipment at the garages. At the early garage, we have Amano 1 systems. At Lowell Locks and at Leo Roy, we just installed them about 2 weeks ago. And we have not had one complaint about that installation at Leo Roy. It's great equipment. It's got a great back office software. When we get more equipment for the couple of remaining garages, we can, from a central office, open gates at any garage in 30 seconds. Once we get the call, we can open the gates. So it's helpful in that. There's added security as there's a camera in the equipment, so we can take a picture of the person going through the gate. So there are things like that that we've added. And these are all items that came up in the parking study. We do the free 15-minute study, free 15-minute parking. Let's see, we have, we've hired a full staff. We finally are at 6 people. So we have people from 8 to 4. We have 2 more people that come in 10 in the morning until 6 at night. And then we have 2 people that come in 2 in the afternoon and work until 10. And they're primarily focused in the residential areas, okay, where residential parking is in effect until 10 o'clock. But they also come through downtown, and they help with events, and they also help with safety. You know, we're not doing meter violations at 10 o'clock. We're doing people parked the wrong way. We're doing people parked on crosswalks and things like that that we haven't gotten in the past.
And how is that going?
It's going great. They're writing 40 to 50 to 60 tickets a night. Okay?
A night?
From 2 to 10, yes. Okay? And we started when they came online. We did warnings through the residential neighborhoods for a few weeks. You know, we let people know that this is what we were doing, that the ordinance said we can go until 10, and so we phased it in, and we haven't, we've had a lot of people come back and say, hey, this is great, thank you. Okay, thank you, we appreciate it. You know, we have these stickers, we have these signs, and now somebody is enforcing it, so that's worked well. Let's see.
I'm just going to cut you off on one
Sure.
second, Mr. Ryan, because I know the city solicitor came in. I don't know how long he was going to stay here for, but I know as a city council, we had voted on raising the hours from 2 hours to 4 hours, but there had to be an ordinance put through. Where are we with that, Mr. Williams?
So that ordinance itself, I can take a look. I didn't come prepared to speak on that.
No, I didn't figure. I just caught
Sure.
you by surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go upstairs, take a look, see where it's at. You know, from our perspective, it certainly won't take much to put that ordinance in front of all of you.
I did get a call from a business owner who wanted to know what the status was, because
Sure.
I think we had brought this forward probably at least 4 to 6 weeks ago. So I don't know where we were with that, but if you could get that information for the council, that'd be great. I appreciate
Absolutely,
it.
not a problem.
You're excused.
Thank you.
So just today, I was working on some of that. the manager asked me some information regarding the 4 hours, and so I am giving him some information on my feelings towards that and how we should monetize that and how that should happen, because once we go to 4 hours on the street, we will find out that there's a lot of employees and staff that are parking on the street and taking those spaces. So I have a couple of options that I'd like to talk to the manager with, and I think we can do something that satisfies that and also provides parking longer during the day on the street. And so I do have a couple of ideas, and so
When should the city council be made aware of your recommendations?
when?
When?
I guess after I talk to him. Want to make sure he agrees.
All right.
But we do right now, we do the 15 to 85% calculation. So every zone I look at every month, and I look at the occupancy of every zone. If it's under 15%, we charge $1.50. If it's between 15 and 85%, we charge $2. And if it's over 85%, we charge $2.50. There is no zone in the city that is at $2.50, over 85% parking. We have 18 zones that are at $2.
Okay.
Okay? The rest of them are still at $1.50, and those are the one-off from the main streets. So what I will be looking at is maybe we allow people to park longer, but we just kind of increase the fare a little the longer they stay, maybe the more they pay. So that's one of the options
I get what you're.
that I'd like to discuss. So we are looking at that. I understand there are people who go to the library and then want to go to Gormley's, and it takes more than 4 hours, and I get it, and I think we need to loosen up on the 2 hours. I just want to do it in the right way. Okay?
Looking forward to that report.
So,
Anything further? Comment from Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Ryan, you mentioned cameras. I had a constituent come to me because their car was damaged in one of the garages. Looked like someone else backed into it. And of course, we currently don't have camera coverage of the actual parking area. We have camera coverage for the entrance, the exits, and that kind of stuff. So I was asked to have that discussion with you, and maybe this is better held offline, about what it might take to look at adding cameras that would cover more of the garage. So if there are incidents of damage, people have an avenue to figure out when it happened, how it happened, and who might be responsible, rather than them having to make a claim against their own insurance, paying their deductible, and then paying a higher insurance rate because something they had no control over happened in a city garage. So I guess that's a question to you. You don't have to answer it now, but something to get your brain chewing on.
when the HCID garage was built, they initially designed it for 12 cameras. I added 32 more. In the past year or two, I've added 5 or 6 more to cover the green area, the green space out there, so I can see who's coming and going on that end. At the Leo Roy, just before things were affected over there with cameras, I did have added cameras put in and new cameras put in at the entrances and the exits. And we also added access control to the doors in the back canal, the side, and that front door on Market Street. Are they all working perfectly? No, not yet, but we intend to have that all up to speed. I do have cameras in my office that when it's fully installed, I'll be able to see every camera in the city parking facilities. And I have another TV that Laz will be able to look at, and we'll be able to pinpoint the busy cameras and have those defaulted. But then we'll also be able to move to the back of the garage, the front, look at different cameras. So we are getting better with that. I just need to get that project completed, and we're close. We just had internet installed in all the garages, so we have the internet that will carry basically our work, but then we also have it set up to carry the bandwidth. Okay, so we are moving towards that, and we're getting close. I hope when I have cameras, and in the past I was very successful finding people that may have backed into somebody or broke a gate, because once you get a time, you can focus on the time, and then you can look for those cars going up and down the floors. I may not have a camera on every floor, but I will be able to get a time. If a car was hit at 10 o'clock, I'll be able to see a car going up and down one of those floors and be able to pin it down and possibly look at that car or make a call and see if they have damage on that car. So I have been successful in the past, and I hope to be when everything is fully functional.
That's great to hear. Thank you. And the one comment I will make on the new equipment at the Roy Garage, it's great. It's worked every time that I've been in and out, which is way more than I can say for the old stuff. Haven't seen any backups, knock on wood. The one thing that somebody mentioned to me is that the reader is now further away, and so it's kind of a long reach for somebody with short arms. It's okay for me,
Yeah.
but I've had some feedback from others,
Right.
that it may not be as accessible. I don't know if there's any way to extend that or adjust that. I realize it's kind of hard, but just know that that's a comment I've received.
You always find the weak point in the chain. So yes, that is an issue, and we are trying to address it. At Lowell Locks, we kept the old readers, but at this garage, the readers just weren't functioning. So we had to use the readers in the new equipment, and we have asked Amano McGann to look into that. Can we get something? Can we elevate the platform? Can we do something to get that up a little higher, or a separate one? And we're looking into it. It's just, they're expensive.
Absolutely, but I appreciate that you're looking into it. Thank you.
Just to emphasize, Councilor Janessa's, I have received many calls that, especially women, feel as if they're not safe when they're in the garage because of no cameras. So I'm glad to hear that we have progress going on here, and hopefully soon enough we'll have cameras in all of our garages. So instances like this that, we want to make sure our residents want to come downtown and eat and buy and retail and the whole thing. So, but that has been an obstacle. I know that has been an obstacle.
I am working with a vendor. I got a pretty high number quote, but to replace the lights at the Leo Roy with better LED lights, I'd love to do that. I think the garages, I agree, they're grimy and they're dirty, and they need a good scrubbing, and I hope to do some of that this spring. I'd love to get new lights inside and out to brighten up the place. I think with that, the cameras and the new equipment, I think these garages would really not be the obstacle they are to some people.
Very good. Any other further questions on this subject? All right, last one is MBTA Communities Parking. Who wants to take a stab at this?
I believe the motion response was discussed of the MBTA communities at the meeting. There was a Assistant City Manager and DPD Director Yvonne Baez-Rose did make a presentation.
Well, Ms. Baez?
Yeah, this was one that got bundled that night, but then Councillor Belanger had actually asked us to put it back on the agenda for the following week, so it was discussed. I am happy to answer any questions if folks still have them.
If it's already been discussed, I don't think we need to go over it at this point. Any other questions for Ms. Baez, Ms. Altman, or Mr. Ryan? Motion on the floor by Councilor Noon to adjourn, second by Councilor Janess. All in favor signify by saying aye. Thank you very much.